Hey everybody, Larry Lawton here. I got a great video for you today. It's about the law, and you know I love that. It's also about the Florida law called the HALO law. The HALO law was enacted and just became law January 1st of 2025. And I'm going to read you a little bit about what this is all about. All right. Okay. Let me really just give you the background. The law bans people from being within 25 feet of police officer, firefighter, or paramedic at the scene of an accident. Florida's new HALO law, a controversial statute intended to protect law enforcement from harassment, went into effect at the start of this year. Now, the first people arrested and prosecuted under it say they were left in the dark. Getting a lot of pushback here. Okay, back when state lawmakers were debating the bill's passage, then Senator Bobby Powell, Democrat, West Palm Beach, cited the citizens' record recording of a police officer convicted of killing George Floyd in Minneapolis in 2020 and asked the bill's sponsor, Senator Brian Avila, Republican from Hialeah Gardens, whether a bystander recording a scene after being told to stop could be arrested. Avila acknowledged that a first response threshold for an arrest could be subjective. You think? I think they're right about that. The first arrest, the Bay County Sheriff's Office arrested Katelynn Justice, 29, on a misdemeanor violation of the HALO law at 1 a.m. January 1st, 1 hour after it went into effect. Justice and her husband were at Newbies, a bar in Panama City Beach, on New Year's Eve. While using the bathroom, deputies arrested her husband over a fight with the bar security. Surprise, New Year's Eve, amateur night. When she came out, she saw a deputy place his knee on her husband's neck, pinning him down. Can someone please tell me what's going on? Why is my husband on the ground? She said she asked the deputies. Sheriff's deputies told her to step aside before later putting her in handcuffs. Justice asked deputies multiple times why she was arrested, including while in the police car, but was told nothing. She said, the charges, February 10th, 6 weeks left to charged with this charge. And I'm not hearing she was charged with anything else, so they must have saw the floor in this first arrest, according to court documents. Justice said the arrest was traumatic. She wasn't aware of the new law, felt she acted reasonably, and worried she would be fired from her medical practice for being arrested. Anybody that's married would be a little concerned, and rightfully so, by their husband getting arrested, she said. Justice did not remember law enforcement telling her to stay 25 feet away, she said. A deputy wrote in a arrest report she was told to back up and described her as hovering near the scene of her husband being arrested. Now, as you can see, it's very confusing right now. Look at this law like this so far, and I'm going to go over the law quickly here. The law itself is very flawed. One, because who's measuring 25 feet? Is it a guesstimate? You do have body cam footage, so I don't believe this law is even needed, and I'll tell you why here in a minute. Let me read you the law itself. Now, when you're talking about the law, guys, we are talking about, let me go back to what I'm doing. I'm going to read the law here in a second, and when I read the law, I want to see if you catch what I caught right off the jump street. This law was Senate Bill 184. It's 843.31, which is just the Florida statutes. Approaching a first responder with a specified intent after a warning. Just an approach. Used in this section the term first responder. Okay, who is that? Law enforcement officers, correctional, probational officers, firefighters, paramedics, that kind of stuff. The next word in here is harass. Right? This is the law. Harass means to willfully engage in a course of conduct directed at a first responder with intentionally causes substantial emotional distress in that first responder and serves no purpose. Did you hear that said? Substantial emotional distress in the first responder. Remember a lady who was worried and stressed out about losing her medical job at a medical facility after she was arrested after her husband was pinned down, which I feel for both of them. It is unlawful for a person, after receiving a verbal warning, not to approach from a person he or she knows or reasonably should know is a first responder. Obviously, people do in uniform, lights and siren, stuff like that. But is this passerby considered a first responder? It doesn't say here. Who is engaged in the lawful performance of a legal duty? To knowingly and willfully violate such warning and approach or remain within 25 feet of the first responder with the intent to impede or interfere with the first responder's duty. Can't we handle that with obstruction? Threaten the first physical harm. I can't even imagine people doing that, but they do, obviously, especially like volatile situations like riots and stuff like that. Harass the first responder. Again, we looked at harass means to willfully engage in a course of conduct directed at first responder which intentionally causes substantial emotional distress. So that last one could cover it all. All the corrections probation officer has to say is, "Oh my, I'm emotionally distressed in this thing. I can't sleep at night, and that's why I had to arrest him because I have PTSD." It's crazy that harass the first responder, and that's wrong. So a person who violates this subject commits a misdemeanor of the second degree punishable by provided. Well, I'm going to tell you how I know what the obviously. I can tell you exactly. I know what the second degree misdemeanor carries because our editor Nick had his vehicle actually impounded, and he was charged with a second degree misdemeanor for not having a motorcycle endorsement on his license. Had a license, valid driver's license, in fact, license, and passed all that. All he didn't have was the motorcycle endorsement. Well, you get an asshole cop, that's what happens, and we're doing a video on that soon. But that's not even a big crime, a second degree misdemeanor. If I was a First Amendment auditor or somebody of that nature, you think that would scare me? It really wouldn't. And I think it's going to happen because I think these laws are going to be fought. And here's what I mean by that. 4 states have passed this law. The first was Arizona, struck down, and that was only 8 feet from the first, but it was struck down. The second law, the second state, first was Arizona, second was Indiana. Indiana had a 20 down. Nope. The third one was Louisiana. And right now, Louisiana is what they call on hold. That's the best way for me to put it to people. They got injunctive relief, which means everything stops until something else happens. So a court has another case has to come out. Precedent has to come down. The Supreme Court, and that's why I think this judge did that in Louisiana, because I think he believes it's gonna go to the Supreme Court. And Florida. So Florida is the only one who's really actively doing this that we could see has been actively doing it. I think there were 11 people so far arrested. 1 or 2 minor convictions of a homeless person, and they gave her time in jail or to something like that. So here's my take on all this and why I think it's what we do this. You got to remember something, guys. We have the Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights are our first 10 amendments to the Constitution. The First Amendment, Second Amendment, Third Amendment. It goes up to 27 now. So now when they set that, they have the First Amendment, which obviously the first one is usually the most important. Obviously, second is guns. Third, trust me, since it was 1770, whatever, 1778 or whatever it is, something like that. I know it wasn't 1776, whatever. That is housing officers during the time of war. Never been used, never going to be used. The fourth, fifth, and sixth are very important. Obviously, the fourth is protection of your home, right to be secure in your home and property. I plead the fifth, okay, you have to have that. And then the Sixth Amendment as well. And then you have the Eighth Amendment, which is cruel and unusual punishment. And I really believe every police officer should have those first, second, fourth, fifth, sixth, and Eighth Amendments laminated and in their pocket. And if they get inspected, or if I'm a supervisor and I say, "Where's your card?" and he doesn't have that card, or I ask him something after that card, after he's been on the job for a while, and he doesn't know it, there should be repercussions, because right now we're dealing with police agencies that don't have the training or the time and money to train to help these young officers. I can get into that video as well. But, guys, we need to be concerned about this. We really do. And until you're not concerned about it, you're losing your freedoms. Everybody, it was funny, guys. Everybody got on me and saying, "Oh, I was all pro Diddy, this." No, I'm pro law. If it's legal by our justice system, you got to go with that. You can't say, just like the Diddy, racketeering. There was no racketeering. You have to have 2 or more conspirators, 2 or more, and you have to have predicate acts. Where's the other co-defendant? And one person said to me, a lawyer actually said, "Yeah, but they might have had someone in the wings that, was ready for that and he was going to be, but they gave him immunity. They can't just say, well, we have a guy and that's the end of it. No, you got to face your accusers, guys. So, number one, we got to follow the law. You should really pay attention and bring it up at some hearings. And it's not, again, being pro-camera or anti-camera against cops or anybody. My take on this case, I'm really up in the air. I don't believe cops should harass or people all over them jumping down their throat when they're trying to do stuff, and I agree with that. I also don't like his emotional stress, the harassment. It's very vague. You can't do that to us. People who are in the law, and that's why it's going to go to the Supreme Court, and I really believe that. Mark my words, I haven't been wrong much on the law, guys. But you need to know about the HALO law. If you don't, you're missing the boat. Have a great day, everybody. I'm loving doing content again. I'm doing more of these. Another one coming out in a couple of days, the shorts. If you have any suggestions, please put them in a comment. I'm going to read them. And please also like, subscribe, pass it out. It helps. I love it. Get ready for GTA 6. Have a great day, everybody.